Byron Donalds, I think his name is. So the guy goes around and he's talking to some people about how, well, his words, not mine, that there were more black people married, I think, during the Jim Crow era than after. And of course, naturally, there's a bunch of people going after him for saying such a thing. The common sentiment is that he's sort of making it seem like Jim Crow was better. That was a better time. Things were better. And he's demonstrating it by showing how there were more people married. So the reality is the marriage rate overall increased after Jim Crow. But that's not really the point, right? Let's talk about the point. Why did he make this statement in the first place? Okay. So the reason that he made the statement in the first place, I mean, whenever you're analyzing a lot of things that our politicians and our, the folks in partisan media, when you look at the things that they do, think a lot about what is profitable. Think about the profit incentives. Think about the sort of attention economy, I think is a term people use. So it's all about trying to get eyeballs, trying to get attention, trying to get people to look at your content, right? I think if you think in that way, a lot more things will quickly make sense. So let's practice what we preach and think in that way with this guy. So what is the profit in him saying something like that? Well, as a conservative influencer of sorts with brown skin, what is profitable is for you to pander to not only the overly represented group by the progressives, the white supremacists, and let's clarify that. White supremacists are not voting for Democrats, right? Now, a simpleton like Vosh would have you believe that all Republicans are white supremacists or white supremacists, I forget the word, what I'm looking for, but let's just say they're adjacent. How about that? That's not the case. However, and let's step back even further from that. Let's get into some core political strategy, especially one that's very popular by the Republican Party. Now, the way to win an election is to get the most people to vote for you. You want to get the most buzz. You want to get the most energy. You want to tap into some energy and get people motivated to come out and vote for you, right? And an efficient way to do that is to pander to people that are very animated, very passionate. These are the people that will walk over broken glass to vote for you. These are people that you can really stir up their emotions, right? So you want to identify groups like that, groups that are very animated, very passionate, very emotional, the angriest people, groups like that, right? These are groups that if you can pander to them, fool them into thinking that you're on their side, you can convert that passion into votes, right? They're very passionate, and I'm stirring the pot. Yes, whatever the thing is, right? And then I'm saying, like, vote for me, and we're going to put a stop to this thing. They'll come out to the poll for you. Not only that, the reason why it's efficient to do these kinds of groups because they'll give a lot of free advertising. They'll wear your hats, T-shirts. They'll tell everybody, you got to. If you believe in America, you better vote for. Blah, 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 So they'll go out there, and so you can make your campaign dollars, be stretched. So, as a Republican, an effective strategy. It's not the whole strategy, but that one part of your strategy that would be very effective is to pander to white supremacists. That is a group that is, very organized, very animated, very passionate. If you can tap into that, they will walk over broken glass to put you in office. They'll put out a ton of content promoting you. They'll promote you to other people. So saying stuff like things were better during Jim Crow, sending that message out is going to get those people, right? Now, some would say, if you're a white supremacist, why would you be voting for someone with brown skin? Well, because you believe that so-called whites are supreme, hence white supremacists, doesn't mean that brown-skinned people are useless. For example, you could be a white supremacist, or at least racist, and marry a brown-skinned woman, right? In fact, the modern-day white supremacists will tell you that they don't really have a problem with the so-called blacks. They just are concerned about their own race. They want to stay with their own race, and they want to advocate for their race and the prosperity of their race, right? Black people. So to that effect, black people, fine, whatever. I got no issues with you. Just stay over your side, and we'll stay on our side, and everything's fine. Like, they don't want them to die. They don't want to go do anything to black people. They just want to advocate for the race. Like, that's what they would say, right? So if that's the case, there's no problem with you voting for someone who's brown skinned. You're not going to have to shake their hand. You're not having dinner with them. You're never going to have to really see them. But if they're going to advocate for the policies that are important to you, right? And then again, what's the alternative? You're going to vote for a Democrat as a white supremacist? No. Now, I don't want to spend so much time on white supremacy. That's just one part of the strategy. The other strategy is, because there's gradients, right? That's on an extreme level. There's people who are not white supremacists, but are either racist or, let's just say, racist friendly. All right. So you can be racist in terms of like, I never hire a black person, or I hate those black people, and maybe use the N-word and stuff like that. That's an extreme end of the spectrum. And then you can be racist where you feel like brown skinned people are inferior, and generally more violent. But there's some good ones, right? There's some good ones, and you might even have some friends that are brown skinned, and you guys have a decent relationship. I mean, you don't necessarily think that they're on your level, but they're good enough to be a friend to. I mean, people have very, very deep relationships with their pets. Now, that's an extreme example. I'm not trying to say that this person is looking at a brown-skinned person as their pet, but I'm just saying, if you can get really, really attached to a dog, I don't think it's that much of a stretch to think of someone who looks at another person as inferior based on their skin color, but they'll be friends with that person. I mean, there's people who have the same skin color who believe they're superior to their friends with the same skin color. So, believing that people you have relationships with are inferior to you is not something like, oh my goodness, no, that's a thing, right? So if people can do that with their own skin, then of course they could do it with another skin color. Whereas, you think brown skin people are inferior, but there's some good ones or cool ones that you're happy to, this guy's funny, or you have shared interests. Not the brightest person in the world, but I'm not hiring him to do a job. We're just like hanging out, having some beers, right? So him saying that, I think, appeals to a group like that. And the other thing is, you also have people who have these sort of racist ideas, and there is this market for you to, and actually, let's even jump out of the racism thing, because this goes beyond that. Let's get back to monetization and doing things with a profit incentive. There is a market, a contrarian market, right? Look at an anti-establishment / contrarian market. Look at things that are widely understood to be very, very bad or evil things, and present an argument that it may not be what you think it is, right? So we've been taught all our lives that Hitler is this evil guy and whatever, but how much do you actually know about Hitler? Have you looked into Hitler? I mean, Hitler wasn't Satan. He was just a man. And a lot of the things, I'm not going to say I agree with everything that he did, right? I don't agree with it. I don't agree with anyone on everything, right? There's always going to be some level of differences of opinion, but there are some good things to Hitler, and I don't understand why we can't talk about those things, right? There's a market for that, right? And then you have people who, they're like, oh, wow, I never actually looked into Hitler. Have I been lied to all my life? Like, let me in on this secret information that most people don't know, so I can feel that I'm better than others because I'm the one that knows about, the truth of Hitler, right? And I'm not like a pro-Hitler person. I'm not a Nazi or anything, and, I know he did bad things, but is he exactly as how he's presented? Now, there is some validity to that type of thinking if we get outside of the monetization. For example, let's look at modern day white supremacists. Before I started looking into them, I had this sort of, cartoon sort of, my vision of them was like a caricature of them, right? All I could think of is the most extreme examples of them, because those are the things that people talk about a lot. So I think about people using the N-word and, lynching and dragging, someone by the back of the truck. Like, these are the stories that penetrate, right? So I'm thinking very, very evil, savage people. But then when I started actually looking at, actual white supremacists and looking at the things that they say, I mean, yeah, they're racist, and they do believe other races are inferior, and they focus a lot on promoting their race. But it's not quite as extreme. It's disgusting. It's very ignorant. It can be very damaging to the country, right? People are just getting power. Like, let's say one of these people becomes the chief of police. That could result in a lot of harm to a lot of people, right? So there's some definitely serious concerns with people like that. But generally speaking, they're not walking around using the N-word or looking to kill people with brown skin, and it's not so overt and cartoonish, right? So that's a valid thing, right? However, I wouldn't put a lot of effort into explaining to people how white supremacists are actually not as bad as people say they are. That's where it becomes problematic. It's a valid thing, but it's just like, what would be my incentive, regardless of my skin color, what would be my incentive or motivation to go around and try to explain to people that, white supremacists is actually not that bad. You know what I mean? So it's kind of the same thing with this guy. Why would he want to point out something positive during Jim Crow? Well, because there's an audience of people that want to hear stuff like that. So it's kind of like, you're always being taught that such and such. So contrarian stuff like, for years we're taught that Martin Luther King is this great guy, and civil rights, whatever. But was he really all that good? Like, what was Martin Luther King really about? You know what I mean? The civil rights movement, we're taught that the civil rights movement is a great time for brown people and this and that and whatever. But what really happened? Like, let's look into these civil rights leaders and let's look what they actually did and what actually happened, and was the civil rights movement actually a good thing? You know what I mean? So, there's a market for that contrarianism. So you're tapping into, that's why there's a lot of incentive to do this, because you're tapping into white supremacists, you're tapping into racist and racist-friendly people. You're also tapping into these people that, like a Russell Brand type audience, right? They love to be the secret information, the stuff that no one wants to talk about, and the truth, let's get to the real truth, right? So you have a lot of people that are just like, yeah, Jim Crow was okay, you know what I mean? So I think that's a lot of it. And then there's bonus. A huge thing in the Republican Party right now is owning the lips. And in the right-wing movement, owning the lips. Liberal tears, right? So you say something crazy like that, imply that slavery was actually not that bad, or, there was actually good things that happened in Jim Crow. You're going to get a bunch of liberals that are going to be like, how dare you, right? And this is like, they love it, right? So, in short, he did it for attention, right? All sorts of attention, right? All these different groups. And also just normal conservatives, because this is getting him on interviews, getting him talked about. It's making him much more visible. So a lot of free advertising. So this is not all about white supremacists, not all about the extremes. Even just moderate people or normal people, they've never heard of this guy before, and now they're hearing his name here. So he's becoming a thing, right? He's becoming a thing. You may have never heard of him before, but now can't stop hearing about him. Hey, I just did a video about him. This is the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.